Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
Welcome, everybody, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I have a great guest for you today, one that can give some really beautiful insights into how to parent with more ease and grace. Doesn't that sound nice? Parenting with ease and grace. Before I bring her on, I want to just say, if you're here at the Heal Your Hunger Show for the first time, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. And don't forget to join us in the Facebook group. This is a group where people who are looking for additional support can go. We have beautiful things going on in there, many posts that are inspirational and supportive. And also we just keep the conversation going so you can stop just trying to muddle around, figure it out for yourself, and you can get support. So you do that by going to the Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating Now. It's a Facebook group, the Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating Now. And also, if you're not sure if you're an emotional eater, you know you need some parenting help, but you're not sure what emotional eating is, you can actually take a quiz on my website, healyourhunger.com, and find out. So go to healyourhunger.com and you'll see the quiz. It's a free 2-minute quiz, but you'll find out if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between. And lastly, I have a TEDx talk. Check it out. Go online and type in Tricia Nelson TEDx, and you should be able to find it. But it's a nice 14-minute kind of summary of my work. So that's I'm sure you can find 14 minutes, but it's good. It'll help you sort of tap in and tune into this message and really evaluate if this is where you want to hang out with us longer. We'd love to have you. So on with the show, I have an amazing and beautiful guest here today. I love her vibe, and she's got a very calming vibe because it's who she is, but it helps because she is a parenting coach, and God knows as parents, it's really important to have a calm vibe. So she teaches, she's a parent empowerment coach, and she really has a refreshing and honest, hands-on approach to helping parents just sort of find their way through parenting kids who might have challenging behaviors, like meltdowns and power struggles and sibling fights, all that stuff I grew up with. So she's amazing. She's the founder of Raising Our Resilience, and she draws upon 15 years of classroom experience and her educational research background in positive psychology to really be a beautiful parenting coach and help parents find their way into more peace, more ease as parents, and just happier, healthier, more regulated kids. So I can't wait for you to hear what she has to say, some awesome tips. Thanks for being here. Let's check it out. Welcome, Vanessa. So happy you're here.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes. Oh, well, I love you and I love your work, and I love the calming effect you have on everybody around you, which is really good for a parent empowerment coach, to have a calming effect, because that's really what parents need, right? They need to have a calming effect on their kids, especially the ones who are unruly and out of control. So thank you for your aura. Thank you for your amazing energy. I really appreciate that about you. So can you maybe we can start by hearing about sort of how you came to this work?
Absolutely. So when I was young, I had a really loving and dedicated single mom who was also of Chinese descent, and really followed in the footsteps of her parents and used a lot of what's called lovingly tiger parenting. And so for those of you who haven't heard of tiger parenting before, it's very high in demand, and then there is support, but it's sort of kept close to the chest. So high demand, not necessarily a whole lot of support. And what that resulted in was me being, an achiever. So I got the good grades, I got into the good school, I went for the most difficult major I could, and one of the most difficult schools, most challenging schools out there, most competitive. So here I am, a teenager, 18 years old, studying chemical engineering at UC Berkeley, and I have advanced everything classes. And I hit a wall, and it turned out that striving and achieving just for the sake of achieving can only take you so far. And I remember having a total burnout moment where I had taken 3 finals in a row in biology and physics and chemistry, and I had pulled 3 all-nighters.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah. And I went back to my dorm room, and I still remember like my black and green, like fuzzy fleece blanket with the horses on it. I remember getting under that blanket and not coming out for 3 whole days.
Aww.
And as I kind of emerged from that, I thought to myself, there's got to be a way that we can encourage young people to strive, because I understand the desire for your kids to achieve and reach their potential, but to also socially and emotionally thrive. And so I actually took a break from UC Berkeley. I let my mom know I was dropping out. She did the thing that a lot of Tiger parents do, and she disowned me. So she cut me off for 2 years. We didn't talk.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a very brave step, and also heartbreaking for the both of us. But I knew I needed to do it. And I went on this search for, to answer the question of how can we meet the needs of young children so that they become strivers, but they're also thriving. So they can also have strong social emotional skills. And that landed me in Montessori preschool, and a career of 15 years as a preschool and elementary teacher, where I just tirelessly asked this question over and over and over again, and made so many discoveries along the way. And what I realized about halfway through my career is that I adored working with the parents, because the love that parents feel in their hearts for their children is breathtaking. It's one of the most powerful forces on the planet. It's what brought my mom and I back together again after those 2 years. And when it flows well in the family, like, it's unstoppable, and kids get to really become amazing adults. And so I thought, well, if I can take these discoveries that I've made in the classroom around, supporting kids with their holistic growth, and I share that with parents, what an amazing legacy to leave for those parents into their children to their children. And so I started to really take parent development very seriously, and ask questions about, what do parents need in order to feel like they know what to say and do when there are big emotions. They have ways of motivating their kids without using a bunch of punishments and rewards or outdated strategies that they grew up with, that they want a new way, a more positive, connected way. And then I found myself here in this amazing position with a great honor to be able to support dozens and dozens of families in private coaching and in a year-long program, where we really work on skills and tools that build relationship and resilience. So
I love that. Okay, so there's some great words here, one of which is big emotions. Can you talk about that, and what drives parents to say, Vanessa, can you please help us?
Oh yeah, there's so much there. So we all have stories about emotions, and whether or not the big ones, mad, sad, scared, like very glad, like over most hyper, whether they're okay or not, and how we're going to respond to them, and how we should be teaching our children to handle them or not.
Yeah.
And so, and it's literally the things that the parents come to me and they say are the most painful. Like, my child threw themselves down on the floor in the middle of the supermarket, and I couldn't get them to get up. My child screamed at me that I hate you for the first time in my life, and my heart just broke. My child is so anxious that I had to pull them out of school, and now I'm homeschooling because they can't handle going back to school. I mean, some really painful things around big emotions. And so it's sort of they come up when there's real stress or distress, and how we handle them means everything about our connection with our kids and what we're teaching them about how we navigate the tough stuff of life. So.
Yeah. Okay. So are kids typically pretty dysregulated when they come to you, or are parents of dysregulated kids reaching out to you because of the dysregulation?
Yeah. And, it's interesting. Like, a lot of folks don't even think of it as dysregulation. They're just like, I don't get why my kid has so many meltdowns and tantrums, they're like, I'm trying everything I know how to try, but I'm also getting upset and losing my cool and my patience, and I'm finding myself doing things that I never wanted to say or do, and so, yes, there can be some what we would call dysregulation going on, but really they're just like kind of confused by their kids' behavior being so different when they're upset and confused about what to do to really
Yeah,
fix
I guess I meant the meltdowns and the tantrums. My sister deals with it, and she's a therapist, not
it.
of,
Okay.
of not, she's got her kids that have, and so I think because she's a therapist, she translates it into dysregulation. So that's where how I even know that term, but otherwise it's tantrums and meltdowns.
Yeah, and like shutting down and refusing, and all these
Yes.
behaviors that they see around these big feelings. You can think about when was if you're a parent listening in or a caregiver, when was the last time your child like really triggered you, right? So like you got really upset, and typically it's when your child was having a big emotion themselves. So the whole family system often needs support on, how to handle and navigate big emotions.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's so much here. So like, what do you tell a parent who's got a kid who's doing like constantly melting down, like not getting their way and just flipping out?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I like to say is like, you're not alone in this. Like this is the brain is hardwired to respond with these kinds of distressful behavior, to show distress and to inspire caregivers to act on their behalf. And so it's hard, like we are hardwired to meltdown and tantrum. Take a breath into that. Like it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with my kid, or oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong, right? Oftentimes when somebody is in public and their child is melting down, they worry about the scrutiny of others, thinking like I'm a bad parent or this is a bad kid. But actually that's so unfair, because we're actually hardwired to have these meltdowns and tantrums. So that's the first thing I would want to just clarify for folks. So, because I think if we're in the frame of mind that there's something very wrong here, then it blocks us from then being useful to guide kids through the emotions.
Right.
Yeah. And then I do have a few tips I can share around like what to actually do.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I'm asking, I truly am asking for a friend for many of my friends who experience this, because I, of course, don't have kids. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's, so great for you to bring me on, because and I know that, when folks are like on the topic of your podcast, like, one of the biggest possible triggers for wanting to, emotionally eat or wanting to, maybe do something that's less healthy for, as a reaction to our emotions is, feeling like you're not being an effective parent.
Yeah. Oh, the guilt that goes along with that.
Worry, the overwhelm, yeah. And I have a lot of parents in my world who let me know that they don't really recognize their nutrition and eating habits anymore once they've had children, not only because of physiological changes, but also because of just the stress, like they just are coping with it. So I know there are folks that are listening right now who can relate to, they can do a lot to change their relationship to food, but if they're really feeling like an ineffective parent and there's all these things that are concerning them all the time that they don't know how to address, like it's a really uphill battle. It's really
totally.
I just want to acknowledge all those folks who might be listening who are feeling this way. Like listen up, and I'll give you some tips on like clearing the path to feeling more and feeling more calm in your parenting.
Okay.
So just give like a 1, 2, 3. And
I'd love it. I would love it.
Okay. So the first skill that a lot of parents don't realize they already are starting to cultivate, but they could actually do it on purpose, is becoming what I call a good lid detector. And when I say lid detector, I'm referring to like how far off is your kid's lid flipped? And we have this metaphor of flipping your lid. So how far off is your kid's lid flipped? And based on that, what you're going to want to shift what you say and do in response. So for example, if a child's lid is all the way off, you'll notice things like they'll start using always and never language, like real extremes. They'll loop and say the same thing over and over again, even though you're saying different things, you're trying to move things, they just keep repeating it over and over again. But my ice cream fell, but my ice cream fell, but my ice cream fell. I'll never have another ice cream, right? So these are all signs that that lid is flipped, and really that the whole sort of more higher thinking part of the brain is not operable right now. And so you're really dealing with raw emotion and a physical body trying to get safe or trying to get comfort. And so being aware of that can make such a difference, because what I often see parents doing, and caregivers, understandably, because they don't have this information, is they'll treat a child whose lid is half off or all the way off, highly dysregulated, your sister would say, as if they had the capacity to think things through, to have a sense of time, to have a sense of consequence, to hold many choices at once, to take in a lot of information, when all of that capacity is actually diminished at that time.
Totally.
Yeah. And so becoming a good lid detector means really getting to know your child or children's sort of tells that their lid is coming off, that their lid is half off, that they're blown out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's number one. It's just really becoming good at seeing the difference between sort of, like a low level tantrum or meltdown to like that high level one, and adjusting based on that.
Well, especially because once they're in that place of flipping their lid, there is no reasoning. I guess that's the whole point, is that you can't use rational discussion or, reasoning with a kid who's in that state of mind. That's, we've got to use some different tools.
You got to use some different tools, and maybe you need to be the only, realize you're the only rational one in the conversation, and maybe
right.
make decisions for them as well.
Okay, got it.
And that is a space where we call it like the hot and go stage of the meltdown or the tantrum. And that's when you want to empathize, you want to soothe, you want to lovingly hold the limit or line if there's some kind of crossing of boundaries, and really help them to calm down to getting their lid at least halfway back on. And you'll start to see signs, like they'll stop repeating themselves, they'll start having more nuanced statements instead of always and never extremes. They might even ask for some comfort, or they might take themselves to get some space. You'll see some signs that it's working as it de-escalates. And that's when you can maybe consider bringing in some of that rationalizing and choice giving and things like that.
Got it.
Yeah. So that is just otherwise it's a recipe for disaster. Like if you're going in trying to logic away, like I would say the number one thing parents need to avoid is picking a fight with a feeling when the lid is half off or all the way off. Like you're going to lose that fight, you're going to lose that battle, and you might even make it worse. So it can be a disaster otherwise. And so if you're struggling with these big emotions, and maybe you haven't been changing up your approach based on how far the lid is off, like this could be the game changer.
Got it. Beautiful.
That's my top tip.
Okay. I love that.
I also have, another thing that's really good in that space when their lid is half or fully off and they're very dysregulated, is to learn how to empathize and soothe with something that's called emotion coaching. And
okay.
So emotion coaching is like kind of what it sounds like. You help coach your child through the emotional experience, helping them make sense of it just enough so that they start to engage that higher order thinking. I don't know if you can think of a time for yourself that you were really, really upset, but then you had a flash of awareness of like, oh, I'm actually hungry and tired right now.
Right.
And there's some awareness that comes in, or, gosh, I am so frustrated. You just like name it. And instead of like, kind of stomping around, you something like, oh, I'm experiencing frustration right now. So naming it to tame it. Or maybe you just notice that your shoulders are up, up to your ears, and you're like, wow, I must be stressed. So tuning in to your state of being. And I'm sure these are some strategies you've shared with your community as well around.
Totally. I was going to say a lot of these things can help for adults as well. So, like this is all, we all need to tune in and name the emotion. This is a healthy way of dealing with life's stressors, right?
100%. Yeah. So when you're emotion coaching though, you're doing it, kind of tailoring it to the age of your child.
Yeah.
And their kind of language comprehension and other things. But the general idea is you help them to, kind of name how they're feeling if you can. So to kind of name it to tame it. It's Dr. Daniel Siegel who coined that, and I love it. Name it to tame it. Or help them notice and tune into their physiological responses to having this emotion. And then also even for older kids, especially their psychological state of mind being like, it seems like you're only focusing on what went wrong. I think right now, you must be really upset, and like just helping them see that. So then once you do that, then you can shift to empathy. Be like, oh, that's something about this makes sense. Basically is the message. Like, oh, I get it. You really want that thing and you can't have it. And that can be so frustrating. Or you used to have this and now you don't. And that can be sad, that can kind of weigh on you and your heart.
Yeah.
Now you're showing up as a viable thought partner for what to do next to calm down or to soothe yourself.
Love it.
And when we establish that level of like connection and trust in these big emotions, the kids turn toward us instead of away from us. They attack us less and they melt more, into our arms. And that at the end of the day is where we really want them to be. We want them to feel like they can come to us with the tough stuff and we can hold it with them and help them through it. So.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Amen.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. And then the third one.
Thank you. Yeah. Everybody's like, wait, what's number 3?
I know, you're like, don't leave us hanging. I mean, there's a lot of, there's like kind of tips under tips within tips, but
yeah.
So we've got, become a good lid detector. So you can really get a sense of how to adjust depending on how upset they are or how far gone they are into their upset. Really learning some emotion coaching tools and starting to use those, especially when they're most distressed and their lid is all the way off. And then this third one is interesting because it feels more proactive. It's like something you're doing outside of the moment. And that is to get ahead of triggers as much as possible by helping kids really discover and name and unpack what, like, especially recurring things that trigger a strong emotional response. And there's 2 things we can do about that. We can familiarize them with the trigger and help them see that it's friendlier than they think. Or if it's not friendlier, we can help them understand that they have power in that situation, or power to choose and to make a choice about like not engaging with this thing that's triggering, or to take a break, empowered to get some help, empowered to maybe share what they want and need in that situation. And when we do that, we kind of stack the deck for success. Then next time they encounter that trigger, like hopefully they won't even go to that extreme emotion. And they can over time feel more and more empowered to handle those kinds of situations or that kind of stimuli. So yeah, so it's like, think of like how, kids might have a really strong fear of spiders because of all the spooky stuff at Halloween's, and they're creepy, and they're often misunderstood. And I still get creepy feelings around spiders.
Oh yeah, me too.
But that's really different from screaming and hiding in your room and refusing to come out for the rest of the day.
Right.
Yeah. And so then we familiarize them with what spiders are and aren't, and how they're safe or not safe, and like even maybe trap one and take a look at it and notice how small it is, and kind of update their perception of what spiders really are, and help them understand that it's not so closely associated to survival level of danger.
Got it.
Yeah. And it makes such a difference. And then have a plan for like, what are we going to do next time we see a spider, and like have a 1, 2, 3 plan. So then they feel empowered. They like know what to do to kind of, maybe they take a breath, maybe they go get an adult and bring the adult over and point at it, and that's it. That's the whole plan. It doesn't have to be complicated, but they feel like they have a way of coping. Yeah.
I love it. That's beautiful. This is some good stuff, Vanessa. Thank you for sharing all this. This is great. I would imagine this is a really, these have been a couple really hard years for parents. I hear it all the time from my clients, that they're, kind of to the hilt with kids having issues, having been stuck at home for so long. Obviously now they're mostly back at school, but there's scar tissue from the pandemic, from being isolated from their friends, from, missing 2 years of school in some cases. So, what would you say to parents that are kind of feeling like the pandemic really took a bite out of them?
Yeah. So, I mean, parenting is already stressful, but parenting in the pandemic, right? Like you just named so many things. And also we're kind of in this sort of almost pandemic hangover or something. Like we're just over it. We wish it never happened. We wish we could have it, kind of thing. But unfortunately, like we can't ignore the impact it's had on our kids who are still trying to acclimate back to school, like you mentioned, is one of the bigger ones. And also just like have maybe formed some habits around screen time or around like how they, interact with their siblings and other things that now they want to shift. And I mean, I think the thing I want to say to parents is that it really does start with us. We can get really focused as parents and caregivers on what our kids' behavior is, whether they're listening or not listening, whether they're doing the routine or not doing the routine, or following the limit or not. But really, at the end of the day, it's about like what we show them that counts. So one thing I share with parents is that you can have the kids learn 10 to 100 times more by what we show them than what we tell them.
Wow.
So if you're saying, calm down,
right.
they're not hearing the words calm down, like they're actually seeing an example of like when you want someone else to calm down, you yell at them.
Right.
You get aggressive. That's what you're actually showing them. You're showing them that this is how we deal with folks who are upset, is we get in their face and we yell at them. So obviously that's just like kind of an extreme example, but it's so apt, right? And yeah. And so what I say to parents is, if you're concerned about how your child is going to cope for the years ahead, get really good at coping yourself.
Yes.
So that you can show them the way. So if we go all the way back to the beginning, like become your own best lid detector, like really get to know your own tells.
Yes.
Emotion coach yourself really well, and even do it out loud where your kid can hear you walk yourself through a whole process. Get ahead of your own triggers and share how you're doing that with your children. And then not only do you get to be a calmer, more empowered parent, but then they get to see the role model of like that this is a viable thing to study and learn and to get really good at.
Yeah. That's so true. I mean, any parent who says to me, how can I get my kid to eat healthier, or how, my kid's got an eating problem, what do? I do have to say, let's take a look at your eating patterns first. What are you modeling? Not to blame the parent. Obviously it's, it's a tough situation. But we can do something the most about our own behavior. That's a great place to start, because kids are so perceptive and they are watching all the time.
And it's true. I mean, really, it's true. They learn 10 to 100 times more by what you show them. Even if you're not directly showing them, they're just observing you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Than what you tell them they should be doing, or
exactly.
Yeah. So in this case, filling up your toolbox with a wide variety of coping tools and strategies, and then not only figure out which ones are a good fit for you, but being really open to the idea that maybe your children also need coping tools, but they might be different ones than yours. Like I have this one parent who, for her, she needs to take space, but for her daughter, she needs a hug. And so this created a lot of confusion for the two of them, because the mom would suggest to go take a break and the child was like, but I want closeness. And so one thing we can do is we can fill up our toolboxes with a wide variety of coping tools, and then just pick the ones that work best for us, but then also leave the rest of them on the menu for each of the children that are in our care, so that we make sure that we're open to, finding the tools and strategies that work best for each of our family members, and really normalizing that it might look different for each person.
I love that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Cool. So in wrapping up, you in a short period of time have a cool thing happening, and it's your what do you call it? It's your calm in the chaos. Can you share a little bit about this event? Because I think it will really help parents dig into this with your support.
Absolutely. So Find Your Calm in the Chaos of Parenting is a 6-part series that will walk you through 6 tried and true coping tools, so that, like we were just talking about, you can try them out, bring them to your kids, see which ones fit, come back the next day, let us know how it went, try out some new ones, bring it to the kids, and then come back the next day and let us know. And we'll do that over 6 days, so that by the end of it, you'll have clarity about which of the tools really fit for you, and which ones your kids love, and which ones you can start to bring into those moments where you're detecting that their lid is off and they need that emotion coaching. And then you can even make a plan when they see that, they're in contact with a trigger, that this is a coping strategy that they might try. And just that process alone can like really shift things for the whole family around how you navigate big emotions. So again, it's like six parts over 6 days. And there's like a low cost ticket that, Tricia is able to share with you all so that you can join in.
I love that. And I'm going to put the link to that event in the show notes so people can access that. So thank you, Vanessa, for sharing that. You are amazing. I have one last question for you. And that is, this being the Heal Your Hunger show, what is your deepest hunger?
Ooh. Oh, my deepest hunger is to create like a really rich, like all-encompassing like experience of my life where I get to enjoy my passions and have really good people and have contributed meaningfully to the world, so that I can just feel this deep satisfaction on the regular. Yeah, that's my hunger.
Yeah, and which you're doing and you're bringing about. So I love that. Everybody, if you are struggling with your kids' behavior and just with parenting in general, please don't go it alone. Reach out, be a part of Vanessa's event, reach out to her. She's an amazing parenting and empowerment coach. So, I get coached for all kinds of things. I get help with all kinds of things because I know I can't do it alone. And I know I don't have all the answers. So there's no shame in getting support and getting another pair of eyes and ears on our lives and the challenges we have in our lives. So I hope you guys will reach out and take part in what Vanessa is doing to support parents. So Vanessa, thanks so much. It's always such a pleasure to see you. And I love what you're doing and the mission that you have to support parents.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Right back at you.
Thank you. Thanks all. See you on the next show.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.